how do you get better when you're always trying to play a smart round of golf? How do I understand and play the game that I have, and yet at the same time build the game that I want to have? Hey friends, welcome to another episode of Links for Life. I have with me Joe again, and we're going to have a great conversation today. And this is one of those conversations that comes out of a round that I played recently, and a lesson, I guess, that I taught myself, unfortunately, in that round. So have you been playing any golf recently, Joe?
Unfortunately, I haven't been outside to play I guess since right before Christmas, but I was able to play some sim rounds, which is, it's fun. It's got a different edge to it. I love the numbers. I geek out. And so I actually like going to the range on the sim the most, because then you can look at everything. And so,
well, it is January here, and it's been kind of bitter cold for most of December in Richmond. So it's been a little tough. I just got back from about a week in Florida, trying to kind of get some rest after the Christmas holidays. And it's been so cold in Richmond that I hadn't been able to play on the course.
Did you get some good golf down there, though?
I only got one round in, trying to relax and get some family time otherwise.
Important.
But I hadn't been playing on the course much, so I went down there and I had a round of golf. And as expected, it was pretty rusty. It was pretty ugly. And so I had this one shot, which I want to talk about because it helped me learn a lesson. So as you know, and we've actually talked about on this episode, I've got this off-season plan of a couple of things that I'm working on. And most particularly, I'm working on that 30 to 70 yard little half soft finesse golf shot, which is a real weakness in my game. And that's something that I've been wanting to work on. So I got into this round, and early on, the rust was like really apparent. And I was having certainly a really bad round from the front nine, from a scoring angle to the point, and it was windy. It was pretty comfortable temperature. It was very clear I was not going to have a score that day. So I got to the ninth hole, and my second shot on this par 4 ended up about 25 yards short of the green with an elevated green. And the ball was on a little bit of a tight lie, but it was the perfect opportunity for me to try the one shot that I have been trying on the off season, this little soft finesse loft shot up to a kind of a close pin on an elevated green, a tough golf shot.
Right.
And so I walked up to the shot and I began thinking about it. And I thought, okay, the smart shot would be for me to take a little, gap wedge and bump it up into the hill and bump it up safely onto the green. Probably wouldn't have much chance of getting it close to the hole. And take my 2-putt and take my bogey
and call it a day.
Move on.
Right.
But I thought, no, this is actually what I've been trying to get to, is to where I can try and see if I can take this shot that I've been working on to the course and use it in the game. So I've been executing it really well in practice on the range, getting a good feel for the technique and everything. So I stood up to this shot and I took what I thought was like a really good swing, and I chunked it so badly. And I chunked it right into the trap, right in front of the green. And part of me was just so mad. It was just like the same problem I've always had with this.
Right.
I ended up getting down out of the trap, which was probably a harder shot. But I walked away and I thought, how do you play a smart round of golf and at the same time how do you get better when you're always trying to play a smart round of golf?
Yeah, because what I love with that shot is we talked about it. There's a good episode of the difference between the range game and a course, where you can feel really comfortable with that shot on the range and you're hitting good shots there. And then it goes to the course. And even on a round that, as you said, you might not score well and don't really care as much about, it still mentally feels very different, to the fact that I think our body, without even realizing it, does things like chunking it and gets in her head about how am I going to hit it, and it's less fluid. And so then how do you really ever get to the point you can hit that if you don't get in round reps?
Yes, exactly. And what I've noticed playing with, a lot of different people over the years, good friends, is that most of them never improve in their games because they're always doing the same thing that they've always done. They're always, putting from 20 yards off the green, which I've done many, many times, because they don't know that they'll get it closer than if they were to chip.
Right. It's the old adage, what is it? Is your worst putt better than your worst chip or whatever? It's
absolutely tons of truth to it. But how do you actually improve if you're always doing the smart, safe, reasonable thing? Like, it was smart and safe for me to just bump. I could have putted the ball probably up onto the green, but I'm not going to get better if I'm always doing that. So the question that it raised for me is, how do I understand my limits as a golfer today? And I've got plenty of limits as a golfer. How do I understand that and play the game that I have, and yet at the same time build the game that I want to have? And I think that's a tension that a lot of people have, is they have these limitations and they don't know how to reasonably, practically get beyond those limitations to something better than where they have. And so they end up with this tension, this frustration of, I know I can do it on the range. I watch myself do it on the range. I can't ever do it on the course. So this episode is my mulling on that one golf shot that I had that was a really pretty awful golf shot. And how do I take the lesson from that? How would I then coach myself, so to speak, on building the game that I want while accepting the game that I have?
Well, it sounds like a lot more mature way to handle that shot than I think whatever I would have done. I think it would have ended with frustration and just
took me a little while into the rest of the round to think about it that
and now
way.
It's a productive episode.
But
I love this tension because it exists in life, but golf's such a perfect example where you have to hold your floor and ceiling in tension because it's such a game of misses, right?
Yes.
And so that's where all the truth comes in of, is this worst putt better than the worst chip, all of this other stuff, and playing the smart, playing the game you have, which is all very true. But then there's also the ceiling side where, to some extent, you can never start scoring lower if you're limited to always putting at that situation, if you always lay up in this way, like that also caps your ceiling. So how do you balance both of those in a way that actually lets you move towards the goal that you have, whatever that might be?
Yeah. And so what I want to kind of do is to name, I think, certainly the tension between this, talk about perhaps the right way to live with our limits and the wrong way to live with our limits, and then maybe what's that middle ground of a way to improve consistently in your game.
I like that. I'm excited for this episode.
Yeah.
So then I guess, could we dive into, if there's the two pillars of the game that we have and the game that we want, and those two things are in tension and we're trying to figure out how to improve and grow.
Yeah.
I guess, could we take the game that we have first and look at that and the right way of doing it?
Sure. There are a couple of pieces to the game we have. First is we have to know the game we have. We have to know what we do well and what we do not do well. Okay. And I think there are a lot of pieces to that because there are a lot of pieces to the game of golf. We have to understand all the different facets of our game. We have to understand, are we good at short putts or are we not good at short putts, long putts? What's our chipping game? What's our sand game like? How are we off the tee? How are we with long irons, wedges, all of those different things. And we have to come to a clear, honest assessment of our game. And we've talked about that, with other episodes. But I should be able to ask you really clearly, how are you with your long irons? Are you average? What's your problem? What's your chances of hitting a good long iron solidly? Some different questions that would get at, what is the right thing to do. So let me describe a second shot in this same round. I got to the tee box of a hole that had 2 sand traps way out in the fairway, right at where my driver would normally go. Such that if I hit a drive and it wasn't really straight down the middle and I hit it really flush, I could hit it right into those traps. So I thought I was being smart. So I pulled out my 3-wood. But the problem is I haven't quite gotten used to my 3-wood yet. And so even though it was, in a sense, the smart play to hit that 3-wood, if I was honest about my game, I'm not confident with my 3-wood off the tee. And so what happened, it was the first swing. I was already rusty. I hit the 3-wood to the right, pushed it because I was tight, hit it out of bounds because there was out of bounds just on the right. And now I'm at double bogey on the hole. Whereas if I was playing smart, actually, it would have been to do the dumb thing and take my driver, which I'm confident with, and hit it. And maybe it goes in the sand trap, but I'm going to at least keep it on the course.
Right.
So, different things. So I need to know my game. And my game is I'm pretty confident with the driver. I have not yet developed the confidence with the fairway woods off the tee, smaller club face and everything. For you, it might be the opposite of that.
Well, and I'd add the caveat of what's your game today? Because you and I had been talking about this, but I've been realizing I've got a lot of back tightness. And so my swing is very affected by how loose my back is. And that can change throughout a round, and it can definitely change day to day. And so can I get a feel in the range? Does it feel like I can get inside well and hit a nice draw? Or am I getting more stuck or coming over the top or getting less rotation? If that's the case, then the smart move is to play that for the day. Even if 2 days ago, I was hitting a beautiful draw and I loved that. Like, instead of getting married to that, what do I have today, and be honest?
Well, exactly. And mid-season, I probably would have no problem with taking out that 3-wood.
Right.
But,
when December.
December, I probably would be smart to just go ahead and hit the driver and live with the results of it, but I'm going to at least keep it on the course. So you need to know your game. And that's the type of thing that I know, for instance, for my game, when I'm just a few yards off of the green, in the fairway, at this point in time with my game, where it is today, I'm going to putt the ball up. Now, eventually, I want to get to the point where I can hit the better shot and chip it up and get even closer and bring down that scoring average, because I'm going to get up and down more often than just trying to make sure I'm getting it onto the green. Same thing with so many short game shots that I haven't developed the confidence. Same thing with that 30 to 70 yard shot. If I'm playing a competitive round, I need to play the smart shot. If I'm playing for fun in a casual round, I might try something different. So we need to know the game that we have, which also means we have to know why we're playing a round. Is this just for fun? Is it just to be able to try some things? Am I going to be upset if I lose 2 or 3 strokes trying something that doesn't work out? Or am I just always obsessed with getting the lowest score, even in a casual round? If you're always obsessed with getting the lowest score, even in a casual round, it's really hard to build the game you want because you can never try the things you're learning on the range on the course because the odds aren't going to be in your favor.
And I would almost maybe like push into the gray area of what those rounds could look like, where I think I tend to make it very binary. Is this an absolutely good, smart round, or is this a complete go and see, just try whatever shot round? And I would argue that for me, at least most of the time, it's somewhere in between. So then pushing it a little bit more, it's like, am I willing to play with a couple strokes to try, maybe not a crazy shot, but something that I'm working on? Or if I'm working on the 30-yard shot, am I going to take every opportunity I have to hit that the way that I want, but then play the rest smart? You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's that middle ground. And
and I think it definitely helps to kind of have a little bit of an idea of where your game is at a moment and what you're wanting to do. So, we're in January here. I know I'm rusty. I know I'm not going to necessarily be hitting, my best shots. This is a good time for me to work on my game. And so I think more, even in a casual round now, this is a time for me to work on my game. I can afford to go ahead and risk a few strokes. Now, when I get into the middle of summer and I'm really hoping to carve it down, now I'm wanting to work on it more. So I agree that, the problem we often have is we live at the extremes. We are always wanting to protect our score, or we're always wanting to work on our game and trying the hero shots. So the hero shots, are, they can be a big problem. Not because they're hero shots, because there's a time for that, but because if we're always trying those hero shots, then usually when we don't pull them off, we're just so frustrated. And so we're not really giving ourselves a chance to improve with that.
Right. And if we're not frustrated, maybe we're at the point where we don't care at all, in which case that kind of makes it just practice, not a round. Because I think, like, if you look at your example on hole 9, even though you didn't care that much about scoring, you wanted to hit that shot well, and it felt important to it. And it was frustrating that you chunked it in the bunker.
Yes.
And so it's like, if you go the whole end of everything's just I'm going to hit ridiculous shots, you kind of don't care and have the same focus.
Yeah. My first reaction to that chunk was I was mad, and I told myself that wasn't the smart shot for me. And I walked and I got around to, somewhere around the next hole, and I was still kind of chopping on that shot. And I started thinking, and I went, no, that was exactly the right shot to try. It was the perfect time for me to try that. It didn't work out, but I learned something by the fact that it didn't work out. That was the right shot. I don't need to be frustrated about that. I didn't do the wrong thing. I actually did the right thing to try it in that circumstance.
Which I then think comes back to the intentions and what you're wanting in your golf game, because without you saying it, I would feel confident guessing that you would rather be in May, June, having that shot in your bag that you feel confident than having shot 2 strokes lower in this Florida round.
No question. But that's where you have to step back a little bit. So for me, I have some clarity of the game that I want to build. And so what I really want to get into is, how do we reasonably, intelligently, wisely build a game that's different from the game that we have right now. So that's, I think, I'm not there on that 30 to 70 yard shot. Right. Do I sit there and say, well, I just can't do it? It's just, I have shaky hands. I'm a little bit older. It's not there. Just accept your limitations or not. Well, I'm not willing to accept the limitations, but I also realize I'm not there yet. So how do I build the game that I want?
Which is that pillar 2 that we were talking about at the beginning.
Yes. So there's this tension.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I need to accept where I am, but I also need to acknowledge that I do not want to, and I'm willing to put the work into building the game that I want to have. Now, it may not work out. I may not get there, but I'm sure going to try.
Uh-huh.
So that's this tension that I think a lot of us find in the middle of our rounds of what do I do about this shot that feels a little bit beyond my ability, is not the smart shot. What shot do I hit?
Mm-hmm.
So
I think this is so good on so many levels. For me personally, this just hits home with my golf game because I struggle a lot being able to hit a wide variety of shots, but struggling with consistency on all types of shots. This whole tension of like, what's the game I want? It's like, well, I want my best day at this shot, but that's not here. And then I don't want to just settle and not hit the shot because I know that I can hit it 4 out of 10, but that's not enough to make it the smart play. And so then how do I go about it? You know, that's where I think most of my internal turmoil with golf comes.
yes. Well, and I think particularly with a game like yours, because you have a lot of athletic ability and a lot of strength, you are capable of hitting an incredibly high quality shot. And you are capable of hitting an incredibly awful shot.
So bad.
So bad.
There is one hole in Scotland, first drive, I just absolutely hooked the mess out of it, probably 100 yards off the fairway to the left. The next shot, reteeing 3, I sliced it maybe 200 yards off the fairway to the right. We were like trying to laser back and forth. I think my shots were about 350 yards apart on one hole.
Gosh.
So we're not underselling the drastic ability to hit bad shots.
Yeah, no, but you can also stripe it 320 right down the middle, you know, which I can't do.
Right.
So the question is, how do you get better? And so it's this process of, okay, if I just play smart all the time, I might keep my scorecard at the lowest number it's capable of being today, but I'm not going to get better. So let's talk about how do we build the game we want. So I want to suggest that there are a few different steps to it.
And when you say this, you're saying, how do we navigate that tension, right? Like, how do we move from where we are to where we want? Or what do you mean?
Well, I'm saying, you know, normally it's not one or the other. Normally I'm going to be building the game that I want at the same time that I'm having to live with the game that I have. So I'm supposed to play golf tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to be playing with some friends, but I'm going to be wanting to score as best as I'm capable of scoring. So I will probably live to the 90-95% level in that round with the limitations that I have right now. I'm not going to be trying all of the shots that I'm trying on the range to build the game I want. So I'm having to live in both worlds now. I want to play good rounds and score, and I also want to build the game that I want. So the tension is existing at the same time. It's not one or the other. So tomorrow I will be playing primarily to try to play a good quality round of golf with probably about 95% of the shots being the shots that are going to be the smartest shots that I can play. I may have one instance where I kind of push the limits and say, you know, I'm not quite there, but I'll go ahead and try this time, but I'm not going to play the whole round that way. If I play in a competitive round, mid-season, I'm trying to qualify for, you know, a tournament or something, I'm going to be playing close to 100% of my shots, the smartest, right? Now, at the same time, I've got a whole game plan for how to build the game that I want, okay? And there are a bunch of different pieces to it. So the more I work, the more time I'm able to give to building the game I want, the quicker and more effectively I can then begin to transition that into now the game that I have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm trying to get.
And so when you look at that, or this might be jumping ahead to the game plan, but do you think where's an opportunity to try it that's less costly? Like, for instance, if you're working on that same 20-yard shot, let me pick a pin that's very approachable, that's not short-sighted, that's basically it's like my miss is not going to hurt me that bad on here. So I'm going to try that shot. And that's how you explore it in a semi-competitive round like tomorrow. Whereas if it's a little bit less caring about score, you would be willing to try it over a trap. And if it's competitive, you wouldn't try it at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you've kind of got some nuance with it. So it'll probably depend on the situation. But what I want to be clear about when I get into the situation, if I get into a situation like I was, and that is, am I willing to live with the chunk if I do this? Mm-hmm. Or am I, do we have a match going on between us? And don't want to look like a fool with these people. And I know that the tension is there. I just want to go ahead and play this out. So I'll actually think about that a little bit. But we're at the point in the season where I would hope that a lot of people that are listening to this episode, if you're listening to this, when this, happens to come out, that you're thinking about how can I get better as a golfer? Mm-hmm. And so this is not rocket science. It's what a lot of good golf teachers would teach you. You've got to, at the beginning point, you have to do block practice. You have to say, I am working on a particular shot. I need to devote a practice session to this shot. All right, so let's take my 30 to 70 yard shot. I need to devote not just one practice session, but I need to devote a lot of practice sessions to this. Now, in doing that, the first thing I've got to do is to assess, do I even know how to hit this shot? All right, is this something that I can figure out on my own? And I know enough about the golf swing that I can figure out a lot of things, but I get to the point at times where I go, you know what? I'm not sure what's the right technique on this. And in order to build the game I want, I need to go to someone who knows a lot more than me. I need to say, look, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's what I think I should do. Am I right on this? Mm-hmm. And often they'll go, yeah, that's absolutely right. You're doing all of the right things. Or often they'll say, no, actually, that's not helping you at all. You need to try this. And go, oh, so I have to learn, either through trial and error on my own or go to someone. And I need to figure that out. And I need to do a lot of block practice. I need to get to the point, and we've talked about this, in episodes, when should you try a shot on the course? And I've said that, if you can perform it 80% of the time, then you give it a shot. Well, I need to get to the point in block practice that I can perform it 80% of the time. All right. I'm not going to necessarily be at 100% on the block practice, but I'm doing what I want to do 80% of the time. At that point, I need to find ways to take it out onto the course. Mm-hmm. All right. To put myself in situations that have something on the line with mm-hmm. it. Now, if I can, the smart thing would be for me to do a round by myself and intentionally put myself in that place a whole bunch of times. Mm-hmm. So what I might do is to play 9 holes, and on 9 holes, play my one normal ball, and then drop 4 balls in that 30 to 70 yard range and play them in on every single hole. And if I'm by myself, even if there's some other people out there, I probably can do that. And just the fact of being out on the course is going to change the environment and the nerves enough to probably take that 80% down to 25% or 30% of execution. But that's the purpose of it. So don't get frustrated, just live with it. Now go back and I work on the block practice again. Then I come back out until eventually now I've got it at the 50, 60%. Now I can take it into a round of golf where I'm willing to try it in the round of golf. I've now got enough reps under my belt to say, I am going to try this shot, and I have enough confidence that I can try it. And now with that just, one step forward or two steps forward, one step back, process of going back and forth from block practice to finding some way to take it into the course, block practice, now take it a little further on the course, block practice, now take it a little further to where then it actually becomes a part of my game that I can now accept as my new normal.
To me, when we're talking about it, I was feeling it just as like a tension point at first between those two things. And it's kind of shifted as you were talking of, it kind of feels a little bit just like the growth pattern for anything in life. Like if you set your target on what you want, you do need to be willing to take some dip to grow. It's take weightlifting, anything else. Like a lot of times you're going to have to reevaluate form and go down in weight and rebuild it to be able to go back up. And there's so many other things like that. And why would golf progress be any different? That there's going to be certain areas that to get to where you want, you have to be willing to take a little bit back to get there. It just so happens that in golf, sometimes that's being willing to take the quote unquote riskier shot is that step back.
But the point is that the risky shot should be taken in baby step forms. And, when we take the all or nothing risk, then we very rarely will succeed with that. So I was thinking about it, in terms of, an everyday type of example with this. And this is certainly not every day, but it was a process that I went through of, 5 years ago of writing a book. And people have said, how do you go about the process of writing your first book? I mean, it's such a massive leap to do this. And my first inclination was go, gosh, that was a crazy thing. How did I go ahead and do that? What I didn't really think about until a little bit later is I had spent several years in several different iterations of taking baby steps of learning how to write. So I started writing a blog probably 5-8 years before that. And at first, that blog was a blog that I sent out to a Sunday school class that I was teaching. So it was a lot of people who liked me somewhat, who weren't going to be too mean about my horrible writing. And so I developed just a little bit of confidence in writing those blogs. And so then I stepped back and, of course, I wasn't going to just jump into writing a book. So then I started putting out a little bit more written material, a little bit longer things, trying things. And all of a sudden went, okay, I can do that. And it wasn't until I did years of that all of a sudden I came to the thought, the leading, the willingness to take the risk of saying, I'm going to write a book. And then, of course, even that had iterations because I wrote a draft of the book and gave it to 4 or 5 friends and said, would you read this and give me feedback? And so it was baby steps to get to the point that I actually wrote a book that I was willing to put out there in front of people. It was a growth pattern to go from a place where I had a lot of limitations, I was not a writer, to going to a place where I would write a book and put it out there for the public. So that's the type of thing. And there are all sorts of examples. I have people tell me they would never play a game of golf in competition. They just don't want that pressure. Well, why not baby step into that? We can build the game we want. We can build a pressure resistant game. We can build a game that has all of the different facets, but we just have to take it, in these baby steps and bring those baby steps into a little bit more and more challenging situation, step by step. And over a year's period, my hope, we can figure this out at the end of this year of Links for Life, was I able to move from this point A of not having a 30 to 70 yard shot to having a shot that I could execute with some success and consistency in a round that mattered. That's my goal with it all.
Well, this has been great. I think I just appreciate you being willing to enter into this tension, because it is tough. Like you hear, don't take hero shots, always do the smart one. And then you're calling out, like, how do you grow if you don't ever try something? And then what's the difference between a hero shot and a shot that I'm only at 40% and all the different layers and nuance to it. And so I just appreciate your willingness to enter into the nuance of this topic.
Well, of course, it's the failure shots that you learn from.
That make podcast
often.
Episodes.
Yeah.
So next time anyone chunks a approach shot or a wedge around the green, maybe you have an episode from it.
That's right. Same with first tee jitters.
Yeah.
You learn a lot from them.
For people listening, they're like, okay, this is great, but it's a lot. Like, where do I practically go from here? What would you say is a good takeaway? Yeah.
I think in terms of building the game you want, it's helpful to say, what is the game that I want? What is maybe the one most important thing that I would like to build in my game this year? And so if you can identify that, then build a series of baby steps around that. So it may be, for instance, for one person to say, I need to improve the contact. I need to consistently start hitting down on the ball. And so for this off season, I'm going to really be working on that. I'm going to try to really build that into it. And I'm willing to risk that on some practice. For me, it's that 30 to 70 yard shot. I'm going to try to get in. I'm going to build the competency, and I'm going to try to take that to the course as many times as I can, as often as I'm willing to risk it, until I feel like I can take that to the game. So my thing would be, what, Joe, is it that you want, that you feel is most important for you to build in your game this year, and build a plan around it, and then start to take those baby steps?
And I feel like the baby steps for me is huge there, because there's so many things that I can work on.
Right.
And I think, fallen prey to that a lot this past year, golf wise, of trying to tackle too much all at once. And there's definitely room to just work on improving things across the board. Sure. I'm not saying that, but like, if everything's your priority, nothing's your priority.
Right.
And I think that for me, a good application here is pick what's the one area that I want to actually bring this into, because otherwise it's too much.
Do you have one area?
Lag putting, I think, is the main one for me. I'm kind of shifting between all feel on that and trying to be a little bit more distance and tempo related, so that I have like, this is a 15 foot and go from there. And I've been in between the two of them. And so I feel like I need to jump into one of them, whichever one it ends up being, and commit to it. And so I think that would be the one that I need to do, which doesn't sound as much fun, but it's good.
Well, it is one. It's certainly one that is very, you got a great opportunity for easy practice. If you can get to a green, you can, set up all sorts of kind of game drills, for it. One of the really good ones that I've heard for lag putting, well, this is a good way to assess your lag putting. A good lag putt ends up within 10% of the distance of the putt.
Okay.
So if you have a 30-foot putt, you've hit a good lag putt if you're within 3 feet. If you have a 60-foot putt, you've hit a good lag putt if you're within 6 feet. You don't keep the same 3-foot standard
Right.
because it's a much longer putt. So if you sit there and you go, okay, I got a 40-foot putt, I've done a really good lag putt if I'm within 4 feet. So you could go out on a practice screen. Certainly you could do this within your rounds, and you can just say, what percentage of all of my putts outside of, 20 feet am I getting within 10%? And maybe you're starting off at, only 50% of them within that. And it's kind of just track that. And now all of a sudden you've got a good measure of, am I actually getting better at this? Because I think often, particularly with lag putting, people's expectations and standards are ridiculous. They think, well, I haven't hit a good lag putt when I'm 60 feet and I've hit it to 4 feet. I didn't get it to gimme range. No, that's ridiculous. So
I would gladly take that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get it within 15 feet. No.
Yeah. Well, no, So maybe you begin and say, 20 feet. I mean, 20% is the standard.
And then just slowly, that's a great metric to work from there.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Hope this helps people build a game that improves, because that is some of the best of golf, is when you can look from one season to another and go, I got better at this. At least that's what I enjoy a lot.